Yo, it's your boy Ancient Albatross here again with the Cypher Unlimited crew. We have our usual suspects of AD or Alpha Dean. We have Spigs18 or Anthony. And just as a quick reminder, if you haven't already, be sure to follow us here on Twitch or subscribe to us over on YouTube. It's a great help for our channel. Really appreciate all the help we've gotten so far. And before I leave the other channel department, we are also live on Moonbeam. Moonbeam is now live open beta for everyone to try out. The Anywhere door is free to join it, and we are streaming on the Anywhere door on Moonbeam. So definitely check us out there if you haven't checked out Moonbeam already. But without further ado, Dean, what are we doing here tonight?
Tonight's going to be a laid-back talk. We're going to talk about death, dying, and all of that good stuff in RPGs and what the impact is and what it's going to, how we handle it, and so on and so forth. We might touch on a couple other things, but I know death and dying in RPGs is what we're going to head off with, and Anthony's going to get us started.
All right, so I think this is a topic we've never touched on. And hey guys, welcome back to the CU. And Al, do we have the Moonbeam link on Twitch to share?
Not currently, no. Currently, when we go live, we get a link generated for the stream, basically. And with my PC troubles last stream, I am not risking opening up any other browsers and shit. So if you go to moonbeam.stream, you should be able to find the Anywhere door, and on the Anywhere door, we are streaming, and you'll see us live there. I'll try to hopefully maybe make a suggestion to them that, hey, each streamer should have a static link on the network or whatever, but again, hopefully that's a work in progress or whatever. Because keep in mind, it is beta.
I mean, it's actually good that we're talking about death, because if you open it would have been the death of our stream. Dad jokes. Early morning dad jokes. Or late evening dad jokes. All right, so yeah, we're talking about death, guys. Death either as a player or for your NPCs when you're a GM. How important is death to you? Do you use character death or NPC death as a narrative tool, to showcase some sort of mood or feel, or even change the pace of your games? I think there's a lot of ways that death could be utilized, both as a player and as a GM, and I figure we'll talk about stuff like that, because I think this is a topic we never talked about. So my first question I'm going to ask is, how important is NPC deaths in your stories, if they're important at all, and do you ever utilize NPC deaths to move the narrative along?
I'll go first because I probably have the shortest answer, because you guys know I don't run ever campaigns or anything, so most of my games are one-shots, and the NPC death does become kind of important, because I guess, spoiler alert, generally speaking, in my one-shots, there's an NPC that betrays the group. And this is across all genres and settings and whatever. So if you heard that, you don't remember it.
You just spoiled your secret sauce in the first 5 seconds of the video.
It's whatever. People are going to forget I even said that. But yeah, so it ends up being a plot point, because the players end up usually causing said death, but it becomes in fact impactful, because before that happens, they're buddy, they're friends, and then they got to decide, oh shit, he's actually, or they're not actually on our side, so they have to wrestle with that, do we kill him, do we let him go, what do we do, So yeah, I think it can definitely be impactful, especially when the players are the ones deciding if the NPC lives or dies. That's my take, because I do mostly one-shots.
That's actually a great point I hadn't even thought about. Sometimes death doesn't necessarily mean the eradication of life. It's the death in the story. That you're no longer part of the story. I didn't even think about that.
See, and that's what I was going to say. For me, it's situational. I have literally made a character's death, or should I say an NPC's death or something like that, the catalyst for the entire adventure. But in other cases, if it's just depending on the type of one shot, there may be the expectation that even players are going to die, especially running a horror game, or, if you're going to run something that's a little bit more gritty, I set the expectation at the beginning of the session. So player death and NPC death can be very motivational and moving too. I mean, real quick
Yeah.
before you jump in, I was just gonna say, think of it this way. Those of us out there, just about everybody out there has ran or seen "Leave Those Ghosts Alone." I mean, that's a prime example of a character death actually being a story beat. You know,
I mean, you brought up a great point, Dean, and it kind of goes along with what Al actually mentioned with the one-shot thing. Character deaths in one-shots are great story starters. Like they fantastic story starters. You need an excuse to get everybody to join together and become a party. Kill the NPC that's with him in the first scene of the game. You know what I mean? Like, hey, you killed Charlie. We gotta fight. We gotta put aside our differences and for the next 4 hours adventure together. So that's actually a fantastic point. That's in one shots. That's a great narrative tool. An NPC death is a great narrative tool to get the group together. And Dean, you mentioned something that I should have started the conversation with: safety tools. Yeah, death can be triggering to people. So whether it's going to be a game that has a lot of NPC death or a lot of opportunity for player death, they should definitely be a discussion beforehand. It's like, hey, look, and you guys know I run a high death count style game. I like games where I TPK the entire party, but I always say, like all my zombie games, I'm like, yo, dude, there's a 75% chance you're not gonna survive this game. Like you tell them beforehand. When you run horror games, you tell them beforehand, hey, look, like K-Hub said, Charlie dies in every game I've ever played, but now it's a running joke. Like Charlie knows he's gonna die. He's just waiting for the moment when it's gonna happen.
you bastard! You killed Charlie.
Kezrek in chat made a great point, or I guess observation, whatever, also known as the Worf effect. Have the allied badass get destroyed to show how much of a threat the enemy is. That's also quite valid, yes.
Yeah.
And maybe I'll switch things up, and instead my NPC will die in the beginning of the game in a heroic fashion instead of being the jerk that betrays.
No. Oh, what was that movie that BFS? You ever see BFS where they killed
the twin
guy
or whatever?
His twin just shows up like 5 seconds.
It's the same actor.
Yeah.
And he started sleeping with his wife. You remember?
Yeah, it's literally a running theme. He just became the same guy.
Person, he's a terrible person.
Oh shit! Yeah, that'd be a hilarious way. Like Worf gets killed, and then Dorf comes like, "I'll avenge my brother." Like
his twin, played by the same actor.
The same voice. It was
quite literally the same actor.
Yeah.
Oh shit!
And just to keep continuity, he was like, "Refer to me as him."
Oh yeah, his nickname. Like, call me his nickname. I forget what his nickname was. But call me his nickname.
Yo, we should NPC BFS is a hilarious movie. We should make a BFS one shot. We haven't done a goofball one shot in a while.
No, we haven't.
That would be fun.
Circling us back into our topic. Ken up in chat said, I'm an old school gamer. I'm 110% okay with my GM being a bit brutal on me, but I'm also super good with other playstyles. Oh, he said something else here too.
Let's go back to NPCs a little, because I have a couple more questions I want to ask you in the chat, right? When is okay? We talked about killing the NPC in the beginning, right? But how about on a campaign or over the course of a couple of hours into a session, and this happens to a lot of GMs, and an NPC just accidentally dies, either whether it's horrible rolls from the players or the players put the NPC in an awkward position where you as a GM, you just can't, you can't change their fate and the NPC dies. How do you handle that as a GM? And how do you think it makes the players feel when their decisions? It's one thing when you pre-plan the death of an NPC. It's an entirely different scenario when the player's actions kills the NPC.
So,
Well,
you want to go ahead?
yeah, that's for me is fun because I love when the players do something and cause an NPC death because I lean into it. I lean into it big time. I use it as, you know, I play it because and I especially love it when it happens to an NPC they've grown to become, very attached to. Like, one game we were playing, they operated out of a little small village, and they had the lady who ran the local, like basically general store, and there was an invasion, and they ran into her place, thinking they were going to hide, but one of them had been marked and tracked, and they just went in there and like murked her. So I leaned right into it. I made them feel so bad that they got, you know, Susie killed. It was great. So
We got some great great comments in chat.
Hey, that's cool. So, new time chatter, Mute Banshee, thank you for coming by. I never really read Fabula Ultima, so apparently in that game, when you hit 0 HP, you either sacrifice or surrender. If you sacrifice, your character dies, not accomplish something great in the process. And if you surrender, you lose something major, but don't die. That's interesting. I like that, actually.
different.
Someone else, chat was scrolling up, but I know also someone else said that you could play. GM intrusion, a cat to save a NPC death. That would definitely be a group intrusion.
Absolutely.
I don't think it's I think that's too much for a single player intrusion, but that's definitely a great group intrusion. Like, hey, you didn't kill Charlie. Charlie's alive.
What I would actually do in that case, like that, because you just made such a cool idea, I might like make that an option, like in a game, and it'd be like, okay, y'all can call out, everybody gives up an XP, and then you have to narrate how you save, Charlie, because I think that would be like really cool, and it will give them kind of narrative control for a few minutes as well as a group, which is something that you don't see.
One of my best experiences of all time with an NPC death, I was a player and we were playing, I want to say it was one of the it was either Marvel or most likely it was Heroes Unlimited Palladium. And we had a butler that ran with us for like 8 or 9 sessions, and then the big bad blew up our base along with the butler.
Jarvis.
And we blew up. We spent 2 sessions planning a funeral, and those were such memorable because every player got a chance to get up and give a eulogy, like for the NPC, and it actually got kind of teary-eyed. And then my friend David, who was the GM, being the asshole that he was, we were in high school, he had the big bad attack again at the funeral.
Bruh.
But we were teenagers. But I remember the 2 sessions of us planning this funeral and, everyone, going home and writing their eulogies out. That's the sort of NPC death impact in a game that really adds to the narrative, and it brings an emotional state.
No, so real quick before we leave this, because it just popped into my head, it'd be hilarious in your story if the BBEG shows up at the funeral, but to pay respects, not to attack, not to they're just there to be like, damn, I can't believe it went this far. Like,
Could you imagine?
I would use that.
I would even take it a step further. I'll be like, maybe they had a secret relationship with the butler, and the butler didn't know they were the BBGE or whatever. That would be awesome.
My bad, bro. Jesus says the BBEG shows up. My bad, bro. With like flowers and shit. Oh man. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to derail.
No, that's great. That's awesome.
No, that's actually hilarious. I would use that. But that's a good RP moment as a GM that you could suggest, hey, yeah, I know this stinks that such and such passed away, died, but maybe a guy should think about planning something for him. And and it's it's a story branch that gets created by the players in game that I personally think, because this happened damn near 30 years ago, and I still remember it. I still remember going home and what I was going to write, trying to remember what happened in past sessions that I could bring up in my eulogy. You know what I mean? So
that's actually pretty awesome.
You know what I mean? So I think that's actually a cool thing to do. So that's an aspect for NPC death that you could utilize. You could also utilize the NPC had something important on them, and now not only is the NPC dead, there's a whole adventure recovering the body because they had the important artifact on them, or they had they had a specific cipher that you might need later on in the adventure.
See, now you got giving me ideas. It's all sorts of stuff I want to do. Now I'm thinking, have an NPC, kidnapped, and have the, and the possibility. Now, could you imagine doing it that way? NPC is kidnapped, and then the players are going in to save him, and and then you do the GM intrusion, and the big bad kills him right in front of them just before they can say.
I mean, that's a great GM intrusion if you really think about it. Like, hey, we need this. Oh, it was in Charlie's body 2 sessions ago, and nobody bothered to grab Charlie's body. So now the next session is, we got to go find Charlie's body.
And hope there was no grave robbers.
Depending on the game and how you're looking at it, I mean, there's so many different ways that you could spin, an NPC death into, much more character driven stuff. But now we're talking about NPCs, and we can always circle back. But what do you think about player death like that?
Are we exhausted with NPC death? Because I want to just make sure because player death there's a ton of questions I have for that, so we're gonna go into it.
Well, the only reason I was asking, because I was trying to see, if there was gonna be a correlation between the two. And I mean, if you guys got some more stuff about NPC death, because like I said, NPC death to me, before we started doing this particular, decided to do this topic, and I was going, death, but now it's been spun into like I said, there's so many options, improvisational moments of what could be done, especially depending on who the NPC is.
Oh, Dean, why don't you say what you really said? Dean said that he didn't think we could talk for an hour about death. My response to Dean was that we could talk to an hour about anything. So we could definitely talk.
Wait a minute. Jesus got it. That's our next game, Anthony. We need to put Weekend and Bernie's together along with BFG.
Yeah, I mean, we can definitely move on to players. The last thing I want to say about NPCs, which this also falls under this category, is big bad deaths also fall under the NPC deaths. And the big BBG deaths, whether they're the mid-tier, like mid-level boss to the final, if you're playing a campaign, the final baddie, save the world boss. Those deaths, 1, always have to be impactful, and 2 are, those deaths mean a lot to the narrative. They mean a lot to the players. They mean a lot to, in the overall, general pacing of the story. So, I think that's another. I think a lot of times, you ever play in a game where you go several sessions and then the big bad dies like a wimp, and it's so like, it kind of like deflates your whole feeling of the entire game. You know what I mean?
It's like in a movie, it's anticlimactic, we just stab him and he falls over. No, that's no good, I mean, you gotta
yeah, I just want to reiterate that it's very important that if you are going to have a death scene for your big bad, to make it memorable.
Absolutely, I agree with you 1,000% there.
Do you have any examples or suggestions on how to make a big bad's death scene memorable?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of ways to do it. I mean, if you remember correctly, that one GM roulette we played, and I ended up being the GM at the end, and you guys were fighting against the dreadnought, and Al kept dropping his car on him, because he was using his car as a weapon, and he was, and he could manifest. Remember, he could manifest his car. So it was, I could have let Al just drop the car on him like 2 more times, and he would have been dead, and that would have been like really boring. So you know what? That's where you come up with those options and those things. So that's when the GM intrusion came up, and the dreadnought separated into its component pieces, and became little drones that you guys had to have even more conflict with. And if we remember correctly, that one drone actually did get to put the wire in the port and download his consciousness. So if we ever decided to come back to that particular game, the BBGE wasn't gone per se. Kind of did the Ultron thing. So it's always like, to me, having those optional ways to make that whole situation seem a lot more epic versus just a mundane ending.
What you call it? Before you proceed, because I doubt you guys are looking. Zeal Zaddy on YouTube says, make their death matter to the players. Even better, make them feel like it was a bad thing as well as necessary. That is definitely like, yeah, you see that a lot in like what you call it, like Invincible. Like he kills like the bad guy, but he had to do. He didn't want to do it, but it was necessary too.
He had no choice.
Yes. So yeah, that's definitely a great way to make death impactful.
Or
it was funny. It was okay.
I was just gonna say.
Okay.
I was just gonna say, like, what just piggybacking on Al was like how make it impactful or make it mean something, or you find out make them find out after the fact that, oh my God, this guy really wasn't as bad as we thought he was, or he was coerced or something like that, where you make the big bad not really as bad as he was. So now the players have to do some soul searching and look at their moral compasses and so on and so forth.
It's funny that Zeal Zaddy mentioned that, because in my Tolis campaign, the misconception of Azrael, the whole concept of the game is they thought they were fighting the devil, like the ultimate evil. But so he basically allowed them to kill him, and he wanted to die. Like the purpose of his death was to spread evil throughout Tolis, throughout the city. So, they went through like this whole 8-session arc where they were going to kill him, and then finally decided that that one of the characters had to kill themselves and take his place, because they finally realized that, hey, if we kill this person, it's actually going to be worse for the world than if we allow them to stay alive. So they killed him, and then realized one of us have to sacrifice ourselves and take his place and hold back all this evil from coming into the world.
Become the gatekeeper. Yeah.
Which Infinite Construct was the character that decided to sacrifice themselves.
And that's what I'm saying. When you think about stuff like that, that's that aspect, like we're saying, make the death, truly mean something on a different scale, which adds to your story in general.
And
so yeah, that's a fantastic point.
Zeal on YouTube again says, get bad guys to seem like just someone trying to make a difference for the better, but their version of better.
It's the Dr. Doom argument, right? Like if you look at Dr. Doom through his eyes, he's not necessarily, or Magneto's a better example. He's not necessarily evil. He's evil to the world, but in his eyes and the mutants that are under him, he's their protector. He's stopping oppression. So it depends on what side of the spectrum you're looking at, whether this person is evil or not. So if you create characters that are gray, are not just black and white. I'm good, I'm bad, but they live in that gray area in the middle. Those are the most interesting characters to have, period, in any game, and those are the best villains to have because it creates the inner turmoil for the players to say, "Hey, I know we're supposed to beat this person. I know this person is doing something horrible, right? It's doing something that we have to stop." But in some level, I don't think this is a bad person.
Right. Or you can even, in another thing, subterfuge, sometimes where, because I've done this in the past, is actually had them find out that the person they thought was the villain really wasn't the villain, and the person that they had hired them to do the job and everything else was the true villain. But put this person.
You learned that from Al. That's Al's playbook.
No, Al's playbook is just to have you kill the NPC to get into the game, But what I'm saying is, and I mean they just did it they just did it. You just brought up, maybe think about it too. You brought up because they just did it in the comics where Professor X is actually the asshole, and everything, as versus Magneto being, for all these years, these decades, we think it is Magneto and it's actually Professor X.
Ken also brought a great point too. He said, although some of the best high tier villains are morally gray, we see a lot these days. But sometimes I miss the classic 80s. The bad guys just plain bad. I like complex, but sometimes you just need a crackling maniac, and it's okay. Absolutely. Sometimes you just want that Skeletor. Just that guy that, I'm just a badass. I want to kill everything. Absolutely. You want the Juggernaut.
Yeah, I'm not a nuanced writer. My villains are generally like that. Like the dreaded Florida man in my one home campaign. He was going to be our BBEG, but that game fizzled before we got to him.
Hey, Sue said every villain group needs a rhino. You're smashed.
No, but it's true. You got to have that mix. You know what I mean? And it also depends on the party, because if it's a beer pretzel murder hobo game, they don't want
a complex.
Like my brother is the epitome of the murder hobo player, and he's said a whole bunch of times holding his beer like, yo, dude, if I want to have my emotions, I stay home with my wife. You know what I mean? Like, he just wants to show up and kill things. So
he got some pent-up aggression that he needs to get out.
Just tell me what I gotta kill and what number I gotta hit, So yeah, it depends on the group,
Oh man.
Well, I like what Aloof and Poof said. He said, personally come around since I set the evil plan in motion, but now it's bigger than me. Got to finish what I started.
Yeah. Zil Zaddy moved over to Twitch. I'm sorry, we on so many platforms now. But welcome here to Twitch, Zil.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, I think we exhausted NPCs. Now we can move on to what I think is the most, where we're gonna have the most discussion and possibly the most disagreements. I'm not entirely sure yet, but player deaths, because I think player deaths are weird. Some people are okay with it. Some people like to die in games, and some people just get so upset when their characters die. So let's just start off with that. What camp do you fall under?
As long as my character's death is meaningful in some way, I have no issue with it. And if we're playing a one shot, you know me, I'm the king of murking myself. Because in a heartbeat, what? I'll take the bullet, but I'm gonna go out heroically. That's kind of the thing, especially in a one shot. But I think, as a GM, looking at it through the GM's lens, I try to do the same thing for players. Of course, you don't want to see anybody's character die or whatever. But if you do something stupid or you bring on your own death, I'm taking your ass out, and you're just gonna have to deal with the consequences. So,
how about you, Al?
You guys again know I don't really play much in campaigns. So one shot's just like Dean said. Like I'm all about like something heroic, like, there's a heroic sacrifice moment or whatever, I'm the first person to be like, yo, I jump on the fire, or, I jump in front of the train, or whatever it is. But I feel like in a campaign, and Jesus said it best. Let me scroll up to see exactly what he said verbatim. If I'm in a campaign for over a year and don't get to have a cool death once, I'm a little sad. I feel like I would be the same way. I personally don't think I would get attached to a character for, like, let's say we're in a 5-year campaign or some shit, right? I don't want to play that same character for 5 years. I would want that heroic death moment, and then I move on to the next guy in the same campaign. But like he said, I want it to be like a cool heroic type thing, like Dean was saying, cool heroic type death. But I'm also of that mindset of, if I put myself in a stupid situation and I die because of it, that's fine. Even if it's not heroic, like, I know the consequences that come with my stupid action, and if death is the consequence, then so be it. Like, I don't get attached, is what I'm saying. So yeah, I'm okay with player death.
Hold on, D. You spoke. I didn't get a chance to give my opinion. I'm 100% in the camp with you. I'm okay with character death, and I even search for it, like what Dean said, for that memorable moment that if I am going to die, I want to go out in a, Young Guns Blaze of Glory type death. I just want the death to be based on my actions. So whether it's me setting up my death, or me having bad rolls, or me making poor decisions, I'm always okay with any character death for myself that was directly involved my actions. Like, I made that death happen, whether it was good, bad, or indifferent. I made that death happen, right? I'm okay with that. What I'm not okay with is, and I've played in some games like this, where the GM just is choosing someone to kill to make a point in their story. And I've played in games like that. You know what I mean? And when you feel like you don't have any say in how your character died, I could see being upset about that.
Jesus brought up the point that I was going to get to. He said, I'm a little salty if it's just bad rolls. And I'm kind of with him in that case, especially as a GM. As a GM, if it's just bad rolls, I will do something to mitigate that death on some level. If I see it happening, I know it's a bad roll. Like, let's just say we're playing Cypher, and I tell you to make a speed defense roll, and you've been rolling 1s and 2s all night long. So there goes. It's just real simple. I'm going to, come up with some excuse, give them a player intrusion or a GM intrusion or something to mitigate that, because I just don't think that's fair or fun.
Vicious Wookie, thank you so much. Thank you so much for gifting the 10 tier 1 subs. We really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Just since you mentioned it and broke conversation, that's actually a buddy of mine in real life. His name is Eli, so thank you, Eli.
Eli,
thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Bro, you're a maniac. What the hell?
Yo, Dean, it's also worth mentioning that character death is also based on the game premise.
Yes,
right?
Absolutely.
And because I think some players would be less likely to be upset if you're playing a zombie apocalypse game, a stay alive game, and you roll you roll shitty, a Cthulhu game, because those games are based on rolling shitty and dying.
Well, yeah,
you know what I mean?
The expectation of death is there.
Paranoia.
Yeah.
There's like a ton of games like that.
Yeah, the expectation of death is already there, so that's different. I'm saying, and I'm speaking more so, like, especially in a long-term campaign or something like that. I remember playing D&D years ago, and I had a character who made it. This was when we played AD&D, so there were no level caps, and I had a 29th level character, and he ended up dying. It was against the big bad, but it was a meaningful death. It was worth it. I mean, I was attached to the character. I played this character for like 4 years, but hey, it was cool. It was like, okay, let me make the next one, because he got to go out in a blaze of glory. But
you know what a tool I like to use, and your guys all experience this. I run a lot of horror, right? And if I want to TPK the party and get it out of my system, I always kill you in the first 30 minutes of the game and then give you another character, like Cowboys versus Aliens.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I'm going to set up the first 30 minutes of the game, not tell you, like, hey, these are the characters you're playing, kill those motherfuckers off, and then give you, okay, here are the real characters you're playing. So, one, I'm showcasing that this is going to be lethal. I'm showing you, look, you're gonna die. You could die through your actions. And I got the death out of my system. You know what I mean? So now I'm like, okay, now I'm gonna build the suspense. And, now if you die, it's on you. That first death was on me. This one's on you. You know what I mean?
It's funny. I don't know if I ever told you guys about it, but I'm actually gonna use this because I read a book called, it's a series of books. But the first book in the series is called NPCs. NPC. And the game starts out with guys sitting around the table playing, a fantasy RPG. And the dungeon master literally tells them, okay, make a saving throw. They all fail the saving throw and they all drop dead because he poisoned them all. Right? But then the game shifts, the story in the book shifts over that the NPCs in the world end up, taking on the roles of the players that were there because the dude, the king there is crazy, and he's like, they were sanctioned by the king, So it's like cool like that. So you could do something like that. That makes me think about what you just said.
Oh, you were about to say something?
Oh no, I just wanted to, because the chat has scrolled a ton, but two things I wanted to read that some people had said. Because we were kind of touching on this, but Mute Banshee said it, a little more in depth. I think it's very genre dependent. If you're running around a lighthearted magical school, I probably don't want to die. Or if I do, I want it to be big and meaningful, Fab Alt style. If I'm playing Magnus Archives,
you don't want that My Little Pony massacre.
If I'm playing Magnus Archives, I expect that my character will either die or be irrevocably changed. Irrevocably, whatever, I'm butchering the word. Change through play. Yes, it's completely valid what we've been saying. Yes, awesome. It really depends on what you're playing, whether it be like Merkborg, you kind of expect you're going to die, or Cypher System, where you're a little more resilient, right? And DM Tales said, if a character death is earned, no problems. But cheap deaths never sit well. I've always struggled with save or die poisons, for example, which is very valid. Like, if it's just like a coin flip, essentially, that it comes down to where their character dies, that sucks. Yeah.
I think it was in second edition D&D, I lost a character that probably had 30, 40 sessions in to a saving throw, and that felt like crap.
Yeah.
So what saving throw?
One saving throw. That's what I'm saying. That's one thing I like about Cypher. Stuff like that, it allows you to kind of move away from it. I don't like that whole concept of save or die. I really do appreciate, like you said, something meaningful. Ken kind of brought it up. He said it's a fun character concept where everyone plays a wizard that gets killed or captured, and then everyone suddenly plays the wizard's familiars for the rest of the game. Something like that would be cool.
The next time we play supers, now I want to play a character that his only superpower is that he could die and resurrect. And I would just want to run into every scene, like just sacrifice myself and then come back to life. You know what I mean?
That's basically Kenny from South Park, Mysterion.
Yeah.
That's Mysterion.
That's Mr. Immortal from the Great Lakes Avengers.
Yeah, I want to play Kenny from South Park.
Or the Immortal from Invincible.
Mr. Immortal from the Great Lakes Avengers. He has no superpowers as all. He's just, and he gets mangled. He gets mangled.
So that's who I want to play the next time we play a Supers game.
Oh, you hear me? See Ken say it?
Oh man.
But it depends on what time.
Normally like 8:30, 9 o'clock.
Yeah, I got to put the kids to bed.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah, I would definitely play that. Yeah, I forgot. I had another great question to ask as you guys were talking. It was good guys. Dean, say something so I can remember what I was thinking about.
No, I'm just saying. Oh, DM tells he says, "Wow, deep Avengers cut." Absolutely, man. I love superheroes. I mean, you guys forget who we're talking to here.
Mm.
uh, but I think a lot of good points have been made. Genre makes one of the most biggest points about killing characters off, but also the group of players you're dealing with, knowing your audience, what's happening in the world as a whole. And I think all of those factors, make a difference in how you would do character death. Like you said, because you run zombie games, and I've never survived one of your zombie games. I get close, but I've never made it to the end. The last two zombie games I played into yours, I was the last person to die in the one game and the second to last in the other one, and only like one person made it off the Intrepid that one on that last one.
My favorite version was the one where I think it was Mike, that he was the only survivor, but he had your guys chopped off his arm at the very beginning of the game.
Very beginning.
Yep. He was the last. He was the only survivor. That was actually a lot of fun. The one guy was the amputee, was the guy that survived.
He was, we cut his arm off to save him from turning into a zombie. And remember, I shot I had the RPG, and I shot it into the deck right in front of me to take So it was like, hey, I'll take that, but it was great.
I remember what I was going to ask. I want to tie this into Cypher system. Let's talk about death in the Cypher system, because I think every system handles death differently. Some obviously handle it better than others. What do you think some of the tools are that make Cypher system character and NPC death effective? And how do you think Cypher system as a whole handles death?
Well, Cypher system as a whole again, I know we're fanboys, but Cypher system handles most things well because it becomes narrative more so than it becomes mechanical. And I think that gives us an edge in the storytelling. It also gives you, when you decide, like I'm saying, that whole thing on that zombie one, when I, shot the RPG into the ground and blew a big ass hole in the ground, blew myself up, blew up like 100 zombies, and gave people the ability to, get away. That was I did it with a player intrusion.
I'm a respectfully slightly disagree.
No,
I think that Cypher handles death well with the supplemental rules. If you just using the base rules, I think that this is an issue that a lot of people have with Cypher system, right? If you just using the base rules, people tend to feel like with the 3 pools and the way damage is distributed between 6, 4, and 2, the assumption is that it's a lot harder to kill players. So it's a lot harder for death to happen. But when you include the supplemental rules, from Stay Alive or any of the horror books, right? Then you have a lot more active tools to, speed up the process of character death. So you can, I think part of the fear with character death is that sudden death. Like, especially running horror, right? When you're running horror, when Jason grabs you, he doesn't gradually knock you down the damage track. He cracks your spine and kills you. You know what I mean? And Cypher, just the base rules, it's very difficult to do that.
I'll agree.
Unless you add the supplemental rules.
I'll agree with you. And in the same breath, I don't agree. Because again, I look at it through the lens of, depending on how you're handling those situations. If you're making players are spending points and it's been, harrowing and so on and so forth, you're spending points on, using your abilities and so forth, because that's the other argument everybody has. Well, I don't want to use my hit points to fuel my abilities, and that's the thought process, and I'm not looking, but I'm just saying, if you're making it where, hey, these levels of effort have to be used and so on and so forth, and you're burning points to go through your abilities, then it does become easier to, knock you down the track. And I think and again, I said that to me, it's part of the narrative. it makes it exciting because now, you know, you're picking the person apart, you know, in that. But I get what you're saying. I'm not disagreeing.
No, I think once you add all the supplemental rules like the the horror mode,
Yeah, Iron Man mode, or Prestige mode.
having villains not deal points but straight off the damage track. What's the Magnus Archive thing with the mental state rules?
The stress point,
the stress point, all that. All of a sudden makes it very easy to kill a character. And they wouldn't have added those rules as designers if they didn't feel the way I felt, that it needed to be adjusted to make it more lethal, make death happen more quickly.
Well, like again, like
let Al chime in.
Oh no, all I was gonna say is, and this is again, I guess maybe obvious camp. I homebrew a lot of shit. Like I don't run monsters as is from the book, right? So if I'm playing a game or running a game that I want to be deadly, these monsters or creatures or whatever, they're not gonna deal like the 2, 4, 6 damage, right? They're gonna be doing like 15, 20 damage, right? Like they're gonna be the attacks are gonna be impactful if I want a dangerous deadly game, right? You're not locked into what's in the book because it's what's in the book. You can just, if you want a deadly game, just make a deadly NPC. That, I mean, again, that's my mindset.
But again, like I said, I agree with, I agree again that genre has a lot to do with it. And I think, game as it's designed, if you're thinking about playing a fantasy game or an action game or whatever, you don't want your character, 5 hit points and you're done. You don't want the zero to hero old D&D style.
I 100% agree with you, Dean. Death by 1,000 cuts works in fantasy phenomenally because that's what you see in fantasy.
Exactly.
You see the Conan with all the slashes.
Exactly.
And Cypher handles death by 1,000 cuts. Great.
Right. And then I think the other side of the coin is why those supplemental rules came out was because you did need them for, because, I mean, you think about it. Even if you ran the Curse of Strahd, if you're running the Curse of Strahd or you're running Old Dark Sun or something like that, those games are lethal, even for D&D purposes. But the difference with those is that they're made for high level. Whereas now with Cypher System, hey, you want to run a tier 1 horror game, all right, Iron Man rules, let's do it. And here we go. And you don't take anything from the characters, but you add an element which gives you, again, that horror movie aspect. If they're running through the woods, so they're expending points to jump over the tree branches and weave in and out of and they're spending points to hide and so on and so forth. But then by the time Jason gets to you, you got 3 points left in your might pool, your speed pool is down, you're done. And like Al said, make your big bad do stupid damage. Make that enemy, put a hurting on you. What Shonuff say in The Last Dragon? Got something real in these hands for your ass.
Also, I think it's worth mentioning something that Cypher System excels at is avoiding those stupid role character deaths that might upset the player with the intrusion. Cypher System has that built-in mechanic that lets you roll back any major mistake. The intrusion mechanic is essentially, we've been saying this for the last 5 years, it's the whiteout of the game system. So if a character dies because of a bad roll and everyone at the table, including the GM, feels that, hey, this is crappy, we'll roll it back with an intrusion. So that's one thing the Cypher System does provide you, and that also is in line with talking about character deaths, the avoidance of character death.
Right. And that's Brilliant Loser made a good point too. He said taking mental damage from the jump scare, losing speed from jumping out the second floor window. Jason ain't grabbing me at full hit points. Hey, suicide, perfect answer. But I think And I think that is the one aspect that why I feel Cypher does it very well, because it gives you tools as a GM to craft the style of game and what, you know what I'm saying. And then again, and even when with the style of game or the genre you're running, that will kind of foreshadow what type of player, what the players are going to do, what, how are they going to embrace death, the whole idea. Because like you said, whenever you run a zombie game and you're like, hey, I got 12 characters here, there's 4 people playing, but it's 12 characters because you might die like in the first
that's another, that's another thing too, is that death doesn't mean it means the end of your character. It doesn't mean the end of your time in the game session. And I think sometimes there's a blur. People don't realize that. Or at least specifically, if you're running a game where you know that character death is going to happen, have multiple characters, and be like, hey, just grab a next one. We'll fit you in. We'll move you on into the story. I think that kind of lessens some of the blow of the emotionally of seeing your character die.
And you said something else in that having multiple characters, but they've even done that in Cypher system with first responders. Yeah. They literally tell you make 3 or 4 characters because the possibility of one of those characters dying is huge.
I always forget about first responders. First responders, we do a lot of talking where we mention game. First responders is such an underrated book.
Dude, I use first responders in my superhero games all the time.
We should do a deep dive of first responders, because I think it doesn't get the love that it deserves.
Let's do it. I'm down for it.
Zeal Zaddy in chat, I think is more of a comment to what I was saying about the big damage. The first time a PC takes 8 points in Cypher without a critical hit, they go, oh no, gulp. Yeah. And the reason I wanted to highlight that is when we were playing with Sean K. Reynolds and the superhero thing, and the speedster attacked us and did 12 I forget what it was, double digit damage. I was like, excuse me? What just happened? so yeah, it definitely is impactful.
and what was crazy about that, we were playing tier 2 characters, but you like you said, it was double digit. It was 12 points of damage. I think one of us may have had 24 points in a pool. That's half your pool gone.
I think it's worth saying, speaking of Sean K. Reynolds, literally right before the show, we confirmed that Sean will be back to run Gunslinger Nights with us sometime next month, right? I don't think we settled on a date. And, it's always the 3 of us, and we take someone from the community. And this time around, we chose Loof Poof. Not because they donated 10 subs last week.
20.
Oh, 20. Oh, so then it was because they donated 20 subs. But yeah, Aloof Poof is gonna be our 4th, so I'm excited to get to play with them. And Sean is coming back once again to run the CU crew on for Gunslinger Night, so I'm excited for that.
Yeah, and just a little blurbs he gave us already, I'm like totally stoked for it because it's going to be pretty wild.
We actually don't have a day set yet, but I'm assuming it'll be sometime next month.
Yeah, that's what I think too. But man, I mean, this whole death and destruction thing, it's taken on a life of its own, but there is not. And so I can correct it. Yes, I will admit I did. I was like, you really think we're gonna talk about death for a whole hour? But yeah. It's me.
I have another question, and this is a question for chat. Have you ever killed somebody as a GM and have them, that they were upset about their death? Or you've been the person?
No.
Yeah, I killed somebody once, and they were, I want to say at the first CypherCon in the Warriors game, and they were like I kind of realized that maybe it was a mistake because they were like, okay, quiet. And I was like, hey, we could give you another character. No, that's all right. I got to go. And,
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to.
I mean, unfortunately, Anthony, and you know, I'm gonna say it, but some people just don't take kindly to character death at all. You know,
But I will say this though, right? I agree with you, right? And some people have thicker skin than others, but and I could be wrong, but I feel sometimes as a GM, it's kind of my job to. You're like the bartender or the psychiatrist. You should be able to read that and know who to. So when like I always feel bad, like as a GM, if someone I feel like I ruined that person's enjoyment. Like not reading the table, not reading the room. I don't know if I'm making any sense.
no, you making
But,
perfect sense. But I mean, you know, come on, and I mean, and at the same time, you know, with all the years of experience that you have, I have, you can't. There's just no way for you to be 100%, especially dealing with a one shot. It'd be different if it was a longer term campaign, or you guys had, you know, even 2 sessions. You know, if you got 2 sessions, you get a really good read of your players, and people start to gel, and they become more open. You know, but I mean, your Warriors game, I remember playing that, and I remember the first time you ran it. We had a character death within the opening scene. There was a character death. You know, you gave the person another character. It was, you know, but you set the expectation. Hey, look, this is gritty. This is hardcore. This is, you know, street gangs. You know, so the possibility does exist. So I mean,
yeah, but
I get it. I get what
I
you're
mean,
saying.
I'm not saying that I lost, like, you know, like I was distraught over it. But what I mean is that it still kind of feels, you know, like some part of you as a GM would be like, man, I should have read the room a little better. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The fact that I deal in one shots mostly means I have not really stepped on anyone's toes or anything. But I use that verbiage specifically because Von Ether on YouTube said I've stepped on toes when killing a PC, but the last death at my table was handled with grace. Hopefully, you know, all those deaths get handled with grace, you know, going forward or whatever.
Yeah.
But I can see definitely inadvertently hurting someone's feelings because they're attached to the character in like a very long form campaign or whatever. Because you definitely see people get super attached, like they get art done, they have these, you know, whole backstories or whatever, right? They get super invested, and then the character dies, like they feel fucked up about it.
You know what's funny? Like maybe because I'm an old grog now, but I see a lot of like a lot of younger, you know, like the teen kids nowadays, when they're like, oh, we're gonna play D&D, they getting art done, they getting painted miniatures. I would never dare do that when I was like 13, because I knew that the minute I painted a figurine, that bastard was dying within the next session. Never failed. Like the minute you have like, you know how the old D&D, I don't know if had that little space for you to draw your character.
Your character.
And I used to tell everybody, my thing was always blank, because the minute you start doodling, that character's gone. You're like jinxing yourself.
No, like I said, I mean, and again, you know, I get it. Both sides of the coin. You know, I like character art. You know, if character dies, the character dies. Guess what? This piece of artwork becomes a new character. I mean, that's just me. I mean,
no, but I've been seeing people paying for art.
Oh, I know.
Getting stuff commissioned.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right. And see, but that's the other side of the coin too, Anthony. We come from a time where we didn't get participation trophies. You know, you know,
I'm not
somebody won, somebody lost. And we also came from the days of the adversarial GM. You know, it was the GM versus the players. I mean, that was the game back in our day for a long
time. The brilliant loser said your character had a twin. Yep.
Exactly. Listen, I'll be honest with you guys. Real quick, I'll be honest. I actually had a character that was quintuplets because it's like,
oh no, Tomb of Horrors. I ran the same Vlad Talo. By the end of Tomb of Horrors, I was like on Vlad Talo 17.
The 17th. So
Oh,
yeah.
you was gonna say something?
No, just when you guys were talking about the minis and getting drawings or whatever, Von Ether on YouTube said, "Lol, a painted death warrant," is basically what it was.
Yeah. No, I mean, I was the guy that actively, like, I see somebody, no, don't do it. Like, I see them doodling. You just killed it. You signed your death sentence, man.
And I will say this too, though, on the custom, what you call it,
boomer.
the custom mini talk, that is something I did when I ran my home game. When I was working at CVS and I had 3 coworkers who would come over and we played. I taught them how to play Cypher System, and we actually did do that. Like we all made custom things on Hero Forge or whatever, and we had them printed. And one of our buddies couldn't afford it, so all 3 of us chipped in to get him one, and we got a medal. Like we went all in on those guys. Like, so yeah, it's definitely a thing.
I think it's awesome that people, but also now in this day and age, if your players are doing that, you gotta be a little leery about killing people off. I'm like, yo, this person just spent $40 on getting
$40, more like $100. Like,
well, even if they spent $10, I'm gonna be like, yo, they just put money into this character.
I'm gonna tell you right now, I don't set out to kill characters, but if you do something stupid and your character dies, don't look at me. And that's another excuse I have with Cypher System, because I'll tell you in a heartbeat, hey, I don't even roll dice, so you can't blame me.
But that's why I said is I don't mind character as a player. I don't mind dying if it's my actions. Only problem I have with death is that if it's a death is used solely to move a story along, and I had nothing to do with my actual character now.
Exactly, I agree. I agree 1,000%.
But yeah, I mean, this has been a fun conversation, because I think we could talk about death for another 2 hours, to be quite honest, because there's a lot of stuff that we probably haven't even touched on.
Well, I mean, let's just look at it this way, because you made a good point. Let's shoot for first responders for our next stream, and we can talk about death some more, because first responders deals with a whole lot of death. Because and I can tell you guys about I ran a multi-table first responders game for a birthday. It was awesome. I have little walkie-talkies. I had walkie-talkies, and everybody was calling in, dispatch. It was great. It was awesome.
I've never ran a first responders game. I've had a lot of ideas for first. I've never ran one, but it has so many good ideas in there.
I combined the Towering Inferno. You probably remember that. For you younger people, it was a movie back in the 70s about a skyscraper that caught on fire, like in the mid floors, and everybody got caught in the top, and it was like trying to get them out. So I ran across between the Towering Inferno and Die Hard. It was pretty wild. It was awesome.
I mean, this is something I think we spoke about offline about a Moonbeam show idea. And I'm almost positive we spoke about this, but running an actual play, because I think one of the problems with, not to get into like the business aspect of MCG, right? But one of the problems I feel is that they don't give their games enough time to breathe organically. What I mean by that is they will release something like First Responders, which is a hell of a good game, but they don't give it enough time for people to start playing and people to start streaming and playing it. They on to the next great thing behind it, right? And that's a great problem to have as a collector, because you're constantly getting these great books. But it does a disservice to the game itself, because I could say that about It's Only Magic. I could say that about First Responders. These are fantastic games that I felt didn't have enough time to breathe within the gaming community.
Dude, I agree with you 1,000%, because I say the same thing about, like the new model that they use at Wizards of the Coast for D&D. Every 6 months, there was another, before it was another adventure, mega adventure. So you get to play your character. If you made it to the end of that adventure, by the time you made it to the end, here's another adventure coming out So you don't get the chance to explore the characters. You never got to explore character options with the way it was set up. So I agree with you 1,000%.
Jason, well, I think First Responders was a tribute to the people who worked for Tough Job during COVID lockdown. It probably was, and also Shauna Jermaine, who wrote it, was a first responder. She was a fire person for several years as well.
EMT.
So, she was an EMT for several. So I think that was more of a personal passion project. But it still doesn't change the fact that it's a great game that really doesn't get the love it deserves.
Yeah.
I think that should be our first Moonbeam series, is run a game of every single, we'll start with Numenera all the way down to every setting, and we can get guest GMs, we'll run a game for every single one. Because like I said, there's a ton of those games that personally I haven't played yet. They've read fantastic books, but
And then I'll throw this out here to you as well, Anthony. And let's not. If they end up being one shots, fine. But let's not build them as one shots. Let's build them. Just let them build out. If they're set up a story arc, and instead of trying to encapsulate it in 4 hours, see where it takes you. And in that way, it kind of showcases it more. So if we get 2 or 3 sessions out of a book, or whatever, or somebody comes up with a great idea and it ends up being 6 sessions, great.
Yeah, we could definitely work off the logistics offline, but yeah, we could definitely figure out like what the actual game plan is. But I think it's loser. There's nowhere in hell anybody's running Stay Alive but me. I love you, Jesus. But I'm pretty sure that Claim the Sky and Stay Alive are pretty much booked up.
Because I'm running the Origin. I'm telling you that right now.
So they Claim the Sky might be open.
Maybe.
Yeah.
And Al running Predation, so you don't even don't even try it.
But yeah, we could definitely bring people in to run. I think we've ran several of the things, but we mostly run original content, and maybe we need to start showing love to these books.
Yeah.
Like I said, I love all the products. I just don't think they have enough room to breathe.
And Anthony, that was the other thing I was saying. That I think a good thing to do, especially when we get to the white books, because we talk about the white book itself, but we've never talked about the settings. Let's go over the settings in the white book, and then boom, the next thing that comes up is that we're going to do an adventure in that particular setting in the mini setting to showcase it, because those settings they're solid. They're solid seeds to build on.
Yo, Jesus, I want to deal with you. If you write an adventure for Stay Alive, I'll run it.
Good compromise.
Yeah. Anthony is the horror king.
That's hilarious.
I'm not claiming to be the best GM horror, but that's the thing I like to run the most online.
Jason C said he wants to run We Are All Mad Here.
DMTEL said you could.
That's another great example. That's another fantastic game that doesn't get the love that it deserves.
Right. And I mean, and that would be something too that we can think about. Like you said, the logistics behind it. But what do we want to showcase about those settings, and do we want to show all the nuanced things? So
you think we could post a spreadsheet and then allow people to just pitch what they want to run, and we can start contacting people individually?
It's an idea to discuss off stream, but yes.
Yeah.
Hey Anthony, I got the perfect idea for the Stay Alive. You should run Stay Alive.
Don't tell me how to run my shit.
No. Shut up and listen. I'm not telling you.
I don't want to listen. No.
I'm not telling you how to run your game. I'm saying we should set it up like American Horror Story, where
that's telling me how to run my game.
No,
I'm not telling you how to run the game. I'm gonna tell you the genre and the style that you have to put in.
I'm saying we set it up as an anthology. Because Stay Alive got so many moving parts. You got the Iron Man rules, you got, the slasher rules, all of that. That's what I'm talking about. That's how you got to run your game. I know you busting my chops. I know. I got to tell you to shut up all the time.
Yeah, but yeah, I think we killed this episode. This episode's officially died.
I was just about to say, like,
Yeah.
we've looped so far out of what we were originally talking about. But this is a good talk, though. This is a very good talk.
Yeah. But last but not least, once again, we'll let you know when Sean's coming on. It's really exciting to have Sean back on, and we're definitely we are open to Moonbeam because we're gonna have multiple shows, original shows on Moonbeam. So we open to suggestions and to people coming on to working with us on our channel for Moonbeam. Just contact us offline. We'll definitely talk if you want to help us out on that concept. So yeah, I mean, it'll be really interesting to see where Moonbeam goes and where Cypher Unlimited what Cypher Unlimited does on Moonbeam.
DM tells Wes had a good idea. He said concept. Your players get to play what they want in different genres. They play the same characters via the strange, but add in something being off, and they take full personas in every recursion. That's pretty cool. That's actually cool.
Actually, we could start it with the strange.
Yeah.
According to Dean, the Strange doesn't need any more books.
It doesn't. It gets a new book every time a book comes out. The Strange got another book.
I know. DM Tales basically just said that.
Exactly. Oh, look, and Jesus said, "Bring them all together at the end in the darkest house."
Yeah,
as a mid-season.
That's another. Once again, that's another thing. Yeah, I think that's what I'm gonna put on a T-shirt. Give your games room to breathe.
We need to add some more shirts. We need to start putting some slogans up. Put the Cypher Unlimited logo up there and some slogans.
I got my Biggie Small shirt on today.
A good idea.
No.
My shirt is just as I am the internet. I'm not gonna stand up to show you.
Well, I'm just saying we need to. I mean, because I try to wear Cypher Unlimited gear every time we're on. So, but I'm saying let's get some logo. Put a logo up there and some sayings or some other artwork or something. I'm down for it. I'm getting ready to. I'm gonna go on the thing and design some. Because what was that you just said, Anthony?
Biggie Smalls?
No. No, you had a great statement, and it was like.
I say give your games enough room to breathe.
Let me write that down right now. Mm-hmm. Give your games enough room to breathe.
But yeah, guys, you have any final statements on death? Chat, you guys have any final statements on death before I go into my spiel?
To die is to gain.
And with that, if you like us and you like what we do, join the Cypher Unlimited Discord server for all things Monty Cook games. We have the largest fan-run Discord server for everything MCG. So please head on over there. But if Discord's not for you, join our Facebook group. Not as big as our Discord, but still great conversations being had there daily. If you find it in the kindness of your heart, give us a subscription on Twitch or go to YouTube and like, share, and subscribe there. And if you're on Moonbeam, toss us what's the currency on Moonbeam, Al?
Moonstones.
Toss us some moonstones over there if you feel the need to. Our videos are always free, but any financial support you can help us would be greatly appreciated. Or go to our Ko-fi and give us a little donation there. It helps us out with stuff like con giveaways and other stuff we have planned. Or go to our online store and pick up some cool Cypher Unlimited merch like the shirt Dean got on. And last but not least, we love you guys.
Yep, thank you guys so much for coming on, chatting. This was an excellent talk. Chat had some wonderful points about death and RPGs. And I think the biggest consensus is if there's death gonna happen, make it impactful. But yeah, as usual, thank you guys so much. And from us at the CU, we will see you later.